let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. So glad to be with you guys this morning. It's going to be one of the best episodes ever.
What?
Yeah, one of the best ever.
I'm prepared.
Yeah, it's going to be top 250 for sure. It's a Scott Adams thing. You're supposed to tell people it's going to be great. Sets the mindset. All right. So yesterday was January 6th. We didn't really do a whole bunch of January 6th stuff on January 6th. We just kind of briefly touched on it for a moment.
I mean, everything's kind of adjacent.
Yeah. You're talking with Taylor. I can tie everything back to January 6th. So yesterday, the White House put out this brand new website, whitehouse.gov/J6/. So let's just scroll through this. So you've got Nancy Pelosi here, and you've got your cast of characters. President took decisive action to pardon January 6 defendants who were unfairly targeted, overcharged, and used as political examples. They were not protected by the leaders who failed them. They were punished over to cover incompetence. On his first day back in office, January 20th, President Trump pardoned all of us. Thousands of Americans paid the price for political failures they did not create. Nancy Pelosi spent over 3 years and $20 million in taxpayer funds on her partisan committee. So anyways, it goes in to basically, vindicate us.
Wow.
Has a video of Nancy Pelosi saying, I take responsibility. I did it.
We have responsibility, Terry.
We have responsibility. Posted a new timeline of events. Pretty cool. And then one of the coolest things about it is this right here at the bottom. With this triumphant return to the White House, President Trump wasted no time righting one of the darkest wrongs in modern American history. On Inauguration Day 2025, he issued sweeping pardons and commutations for the vast majority of January 6 defendants, patriotic citizens who had been viciously overcharged, denied due process, and held as political hostages by a vengeful regime. These Americans, many guilty of nothing more than peacefully protesting a disputed election, were finally freed from years of cruel imprisonment, restored to their families, and exonerated. In one bold stroke, Trump ended the nightmare of weaponized justice and delivered long overdue vindication by those betrayed by the very leaders sworn in. Unfortunately, these 9 beautiful and courageous souls lost their lives, 4 on January 6 itself and 5 by their own hand, while enduring merciless persecution for the simple act of peacefully walking through the Capitol to protest a stolen election. So it's got Kevin Greasom, Matthew Pierna, Benjamin Phillips, Mark Ongst, Ashley Babbitt, Jord Meacham, Roseanne Boylan, Christopher Stanton George, and David Hommel. All died as a result of January 6th, either day of or later. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, which is, am I not close enough here?
You really got to get in there.
I'm trying to swallow it. I'm trying to get it in there. So anyways, that's pretty cool. It's nice to see the White House officially do that. Obviously, Trump's always been pretty nice to us J6ers, but other people in his White House, namely Todd Blanche, apparently haven't been all that great. But that's pretty big incentive. I've often stated to other J6ers, I'm like, there's a order to the revelation of things. Because remember, facts don't win, narratives do. We had all the facts in 2020. We didn't have the narrative. And so Trump has incrementally been releasing more and more information. And it's like, listen, it's going to go Russiagate, Spygate, Tulsi Gabbard came out and kind of dumped that on us. Then it's going to go election. Trump's been working on that. Then it's going to go J6. Then it's going to be back to the beginning for accountability. It's going to be exposure. Then you're going to see someone in that Barack Obama orbit get indicted for Russiagate, etc. And then you'll start to see indictments kind of sprawling out to all the scandals after that. That's my opinion. We'll see how it goes. Stephen Miller was on Fox News on Hannity, and he was talking about immigration. And did you know an interesting stat? Did you know that 80% of employees at dairy farms in Idaho are illegal immigrants?
No.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a problem.
Is it for your audience perfectly, Sean? This was not a loophole. The Biden administration
Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, devised a scheme to fly illegal aliens into the country and then to escort them en masse across the border by the millions, and to give them something known as parole, which gives them a work permit, which gives them a social security number, which gives them access to the voting booth. This was the plan all along, to get them here illegally so they can get free government benefits, get hooked to welfare, and be able to participate in American elections. This was an attack on democracy by the Democrat Party. It's the same attack that we see, Sean, when you have California, a sanctuary state, that is refusing to turn over even illegal alien criminals and gang members to ICE. So these are illegal aliens in California who have been arrested by California police, by California law enforcement for serious crimes, for crimes against children, for felonies, for crimes that threaten public safety, and they are refusing to hand these criminal illegal aliens over to ICE. Instead, they're freeing them back into the cities to offend and offend again. By any definition, what California is doing is criminal. It is a violation of our laws. It is one of the most heinous things that I have seen in my entire.
So California, Washington, Illinois, New York, these sanctuary states are obviously drawing a ton of attention because they're fighting ICE from coming in there. States like Idaho, Utah, they're allowing ICE to come into the jails and take out drunk drivers and kind of do their thing. But they're doing that in big part because they're protecting people that are still out in the fields, right? Which I look at it this is all one huge symptomatic problem. And if you can fix the illegal immigration problem, what's coming with the illegal immigrants, Ron? There's a couple things that come with them. Drugs.
Crime.
Okay, what else comes with them? That disease for cattle, apparently. But one of the things that comes is drugs, right? So you've got the laborer that comes in, but he's humping on his back a bunch of drugs for the cartel, gives that to the cartel guy, and then hands over to his almond.
The cartels need mules, and these guys just happen to be going north.
They just happen to be walking, and you can carry an extra couple kilos on your back, right? So this is a picture of a shot of downtown Seattle. So Mayor Katie Wilson is back in office, and first thing she did was order the Seattle police to stop arresting open air drug use. So under the last mayor, he was like, yeah, let's go ahead and arrest the open air drug users, right? You know, just kind of clean up the streets. Well, Katie Wilson, she doesn't want to do that. So this is right next to Lumen Field where the Seattle Seahawks play. Just right, 1 week later, we already have this going on. This is what like walking down the halls of prison is like sometimes, like in the dorms. Just open air drug use. So these people are using drugs that are brought by the immigrants, and they're not at the jobs that are taken by the immigrants. Because all these people could be working somewhere, right? I mean, in theory, if you fill up all these, basic labor jobs, then where do the teenagers go? They go to the check stands, and then that pushes the people. It just starts to push people out of the market until pretty much someone is too old, no skills, no jobs. Anyways, so again, Katie Wilson has done that. And there's something that came up in my feed this week that I thought was really interesting. And it's this concept of feminization, right? So one of the things that gets kind of bandied about by political pundits is this idea of feminizing politics or feminazis or first, second, third wave feminism. Now we're on to fourth wave feminism. Well, what does all of this mean? So this little psychiatrist here, she breaks down exactly what she saw happening in 2020 and attributes it to feminine energy, which then we're going to look at that through the rest of today. And we're going to see a lot of openly declared feminine energy things happening at the root of a lot of our societal problems.
But I am saying that feminization has caused one particular problem, and that is wokeness. Like a lot of people, I was baffled by the woke phenomenon. Why did everyone seemingly go crazy all at once in the summer of 2020? It was inexplicable. It seemed to be mass hysteria, genuinely. And the more I thought about what caused it, which is a very important question, because if we know what causes it, we know how to prevent it from happening in the future. I read an article that someone else wrote that put forward a really simple, elegant thesis, which is that wokeness is simply feminine patterns of behavior applied to institutions where women had not been very well represented until recently. Women tend to be more consensus focused, consensus oriented. Men, when they're approaching a moral question, will ask, what are the facts? What are the rules? Whereas women will say, what are the relationships at play here? How can we make everybody happy? How can we reach an outcome that will satisfy all the parties?
That is super critical.
Oh,
Men
man.
approach a moral problem and they go, what are the facts? What are the rules? Okay. Women approach it and go, what are the emotions? What are the feelings? Who are the shareholders, the stakeholders in this situation? Whereas men just come in, it doesn't matter. What are the facts? What are the rules? We'll even arrest a president.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
that's the camp I'm in.
Whereas she's looking at it going, well, we don't want to arrest the victims. And then you've got these people over here who've been harmed historically by societies.
Yeah, that's where the man has to step in and go, that's nonsense.
Yep. He punched them. Doesn't
Facts
matter
are
what
facts.
the color of his skin was.
Yeah.
Okay.
As opposed to the male perspective of how do we reach an outcome that is just and according to the rules. That sounded a lot like wokeness to me. And the sort of piece that made it all click into place for me was the coincidence of timing. It is the case, just we can all agree as a matter of fact, that a lot of institutions that went woke or were affected by wokeness became demographically female in the last 5 years. Law schools in America turned majority female in 2016, and they've gotten a little bit more female every year since then. I think now it stands at 55, 56%. The New York Times became majority female in its workforce in 2018, which is maybe why it was so susceptible to the fads of wokeness and the internal policing and the Slack revolts that took place internally over there. Medical schools are now majority female. The white collar workforce overall, employees in the United States with college degrees, a majority of them are women. And managers, management positions in the US workforce, 46% female, so almost majority female. So the fact that all of these institutions tipped over to being majority female around the same time that wokeness emerged seemed to me that couldn't possibly be a coincidence. And one of the most consistent psychological differences between men and women is women have a strong impulse of caring, right? Which is exactly, I mean, I'm not somebody who looks to evolutionary biology for the solutions to all human phenomena, but this particular one does seem glaringly Darwinian, right? That women see helpless things and they want to take care of them. That is definitely something that Darwin would find a pretty easy explanation for. But that's also something that wokeness can easily weaponize. It means that if you can frame your political issue as a way of caring for some helpless class, then you're golden, right?
Minorities are babies.
That's right. But that is
Minorities are babies.
that is precisely what's going on at a deeper level, and that's why
Minorities are babies, and you turn them into your little baby project. Over in the chat, Shantini, good morning. John Atakis, good Wednesday morning. Ponyboy, good morning. Badaizo, hello, son. Hi, mom. Pray the Rosary Daily, good morning. For Razor, good morning. Radian Boise, Carleats, Grand Rising. Todd Blanche has to go as well. Yes, from all accounts, it does seem like Todd Blanche has got to go. Okay, so feminism, right? This feminine energy that seeps into everything. I heard Milo Yiannopoulos one time talking about World War II and World War I and World War II. You know, these two huge major World War conflicts that saw an unimaginable amount of blood out in the field, right? Just mechanized warfare, a scale that humanity had never seen before. And then we have the nuclear weapon. And all of a sudden, the world wakes up to a morning where we can destroy ourselves like that, right? And Milo Yiannopoulos says there was a crisis of manhood. You had all these chauvinist men, and I use chauvinist just to be manly men, right? Who were leaders around the world. These are your kings, your presidents, your dictators, all these manly men. And they looked around the world and they realized that they had just about destroyed it. And that it caused a crisis of confidence, a crisis of what is morally right? What are the facts? What is the just and moral outcome, right? Once you introduce the nuclear weapons, the machine guns, chemical warfare, all of a sudden, you know, just punching the bully in the face is no longer a possibility when he can turn around and mustard gas your city. Does that make sense? And so there was a crisis of leadership, a crisis of confidence amongst the males around the world, that they had walked the world into a nuclear apocalypse morning, right? And so then that gave the ability for females to come in. It just created a power vacuum. Just nobody wanted to lead, right? Like every leader around the world is looking around like,
Well, they were all pumping the brakes.
They were all pumping the brakes a little bit, exactly. Which is why after World War II, you do end up with Soviet Union continuing to do what it does, and you have the Cold War, right? Because nobody wants to fire another shot because you know, you might fire a quick rifle round, it might be followed up by an intercontinental ballistic missile. You know what I mean? Like, it changed the dynamics. But with that also came the rise of femininity in politics. They'd been given the right to vote just a couple decades earlier, and all of a sudden they're getting hip to it, right? Then you get the fact that women during World War II, especially in the Western countries, went to work, right? This is Rosie Riveter. All of a sudden they're at work, they're making a wage. This is the very beginning of the potential for a two income household, right? So all of that starts to just kind of tumble forward over the decades, to the point that as time goes on, you have leaders in our country, for example, the elected mayor of Los Angeles, Kim Bass. She's sitting here talking about, again, feminine energy and protesting.
You know, you said, I'm quoting you here, you said, what we are living through is one of the great civil rights and human rights struggles of our time.
Right.
What can average people do to push back against this authoritarianism that we're seeing?
You know,
right now?
I always look at history, and I think that this is a moral assault on our democracy. And
okay, notice how she uses those feminine words, a moral assault on our democracy. Okay, if it's a moral assault, what does a man think? What are the facts? Give me the information. And what are the rules? But look at how she's going to take it. She's going to take it out of all the framework of what were the facts and what were the rules, and just go pure feelings here.
We need to look back at history when things like this have happened before, the internment of the Japanese, the fugitive slave patrols, which is what this has felt like. And then looking back at the civil rights movement and having nonviolent direct action, civil disobedient protests, it is so extremely important that we protest.
You know,
There's no question as to why. It's just purely, oh, look, this is like the slave patrols. Well, what were the slave patrols? That was just cops doing their jobs, wasn't it? There was a law that said it was against the law to be a fugitive slave, right? So that was just cops doing their job. As soon as the law changed, what happened to the slave patrols?
Oh, I guess they were done.
They went away, and only the real hardcore guys in the South put on their hoods and kept doing them, right? But no, that's really the truth. A man would look at that and he'd go, well, those slave patrols happened for a reason. You know, the internment of the Japanese happened for a reason. Rounding up illegal immigrants on our streets that have committed crimes is happening for a reason. But just because Kim Bass looks at it and goes, oh, it just feels mean. Well, hold on. You know, we do family separation from parents every day when a drunk driver gets arrested or a criminal. Like, that's, you know, what are the rules? The facts and the rules, right? Lawbreaker, he gets separated from his family. Them is the rules. A woman doesn't look at it like that. Here's another one.
It'd make it a lot easier if they just stay out of the country.
Yeah, here's another example of a woman who's getting into independent media. This is Tim Walz's daughter. Okay, so we're going to play this clip here, and she's complaining about Nick Shirley, because Nick Shirley has an ethical responsibility not to expose Somali fraud, because people trust independent journalists more than mainstream media.
brother.
You just can't go and do this to people and communities. Okay, so listen to this.
All of that. And that's, you know, I said in a video this morning, like, now I can kind of be let loose, and like, I definitely want to have some of those conversations going forward.
Yeah.
But I do, like, I definitely think people see somebody and they're like, oh, this person's, you know, I see myself in them, and so I'm going to believe them. And that is what people definitely see in me. I think then that's like an ethical thing on his end. Like, you know, you can't just go and do this to people. I don't know.
Yeah, but
In
I mean,
communities.
But I watched it. I haven't watched the whole video like you. I've watched a lot of clips on there because he's posting a lot of them. But the style of it, I watch it. I'm like, oh no, like this is my style. This is what I do. And like here I am, like feeling like what I'm doing is a good thing, but then it can be used. So easily.
And there's no like checks and balances on you know, content, or not many, and just social media in general.
So because he is just like us, and he's just a dude going out and finding fraud, you can't just do that to those communities, man. Have you thought about their feelings? Well, a man would say, yeah, but the facts are they're committing fraud, right? So that's criminal behavior. And so what are the rules? Exposure and arrest. Okay, like this seems to follow a logical pattern here. But you've got women again, and I love all of our women listeners. Most of you are women, right? And you understand this. But women come in and go, but the effect was you you marginalize these communities that are already marginalized. And that's my baby. Don't you know I take care of the minorities ideologically like I take care of a baby? Don't make Mama Bear come out. That's what we're living through. Now, the other thing about this too is this extends, again, this is Minnesota, right? The flag, they changed their flag. So this is the guy who actually designed this new Minnesota Somali flag. Listen to him talk and tell me he's not feminine.
Like when the flag redesign kind of whole process was going about and my flag was like chosen, there was a lot of even just controversy and apprehension from the more conservative sides just about the old flag being, ushered out of being our flag. A lot of it said this flag represents us. We love this flag. And, even despite its very colonialistic, very racist imagery and history and even the historical context.
Because I know the Minnesota flag was just steeped in slavery. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
Text behind it.
A flag that's represented Union miners and Northwoods loggers, right? For all these years. That's racist colonial slop. Okay.
A lot of people were still very upset at that being changed and removed. So I think, just kind of starting from that point already, there was a lot of division almost between political lines about whether we change it or whether we keep the old flag. And then just kind of, I think, slowly morphed into the whole Somali controversy of, my perspective is they wanted to find a way to, the far right specifically, like invalidate the progressive change of the flag.
Does that not sound gay? They have a gay flag. All right, in the chat. But Pony Boy says, funny how Waltz's daughter mentioned there should be checks and balances on social media. Not the fraud, but the social media content creation. Yeah. Exactly. Because it's more concerned about feelings and stakeholders, shareholders in the issues than about the facts and what's right or wrong. What are the facts and what are the rules? Don't worry about the rules. What's important is that these Somalis are getting help. Okay. This has the ability to destroy entire countries and entire nations. So this is Seth Gruber, and he talks about Unwin's 1934 bombshell, sexual freedom equals empire killer. And he talks about how it's a combination of these things, right? When you get the feminism and then you combine that with a sexual liberation, it's like 3 generations, your civilization is done.
A.D. Unwin wrote a book in 1934 called Sex and Culture, where he examined 86 civilizations over 5,000 years. And shocker, he finds a 100% correlation between free the libido, Woodstock sexual insanity, and the death of civilizations. And he says once a civilization adopts total sexual freedom, that's actually the phrase he uses, you have 3 generations before your civilization is taken over by another society with greater social energy. Child sacrifice is always the foundation of a teetering empire. You can't get the right to life right, you won't get any other rights right. And those who murder the unborn cannot be trusted to govern the born, and those who murder the unborn will one day murder you too, the longer that you tolerate the sacrament of Satan. I think it was 73. 3 things happened in 1973. Obviously, Roe v. Wade, the Endangered Species Act that gives more legal protections to porpoises and sea turtles than human babies.
Wow.
And thirdly, the removing of obscenity laws by our Supreme Court, allowing the widespread distribution of pornography. All that happens in 73. So if I'm doing my math right, 73 to 2003, 2003 to 2033. So we're approaching the 3rd and final chapter.
If you listen to Tim Pool, he says he's not worried about the liberals because the conservatives will win because they're having more babies than them. The problem is when you import quote unquote liberals, aka Islamic Marxists or Mexican socialists who outpace even conservative Americans at having kids. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This demographics is destiny. So whether or not
it's like a tsunami.
So whether or not you want to attribute sexual liberation to the direct downfall of society, what it does attribute to is a change in demographics, and it changes the family dynamic, which changes fathers who are not the actual father of their children, right? Absentee fathers, that kind of thing, single mothers. It creates generational problems that destabilize society.
This is why a lot of people think Europe is lost. They're just overrun.
Look at the difference between boomer liberals and boomer conservatives, and then their progeny, right? Liberals who lived the American dream but had kids, but they were just loosey-goosey in their household. they're the ones that have 40-year-olds and 30-year-old kids that are not married. Okay. But then you go to the conservative families, and they're the ones that have little Zoomerwaffen kids that are 19 and 18 and are already married. You know what I mean? Trying to buy a house. Whereas the other ones are like, well, we'll just keep coming and living at home. You see what I'm saying? Demographically very different. And in the future, MAGA and the conservative side of things has a demographic future. The liberals don't necessarily. So, our entire nation could be taken out, or we could just have kind of a new growth pattern. Does that make sense? Assuming we don't have the extra variable of Islamic overbreeders and Catholic South Americans that overbreed, that vote left, right? I mean, let's just be frank about it. Now, Iceland has experienced this. This is some people being interviewed in Iceland talking about literally how in the last 10 years, Iceland has completely changed as a country.
So Iceland is a country that has changed very rapidly in a very short period of time. So in a 10-year span, Iceland completely took a 180. It used to be a very local, comfy place, not many people, but now it's very crowded. The whole infrastructure is falling down, and Iceland is essentially a dead island. There's no future. There's no church, no community. The whole fabric of Icelandic society has been overturned by leftist politics, if you want to go that route. So a lot of promotion of homosexuality, a lot of degeneracy. We celebrate gay pride more than we celebrate our own Independence Day. So it's sort of there's no hope in future for kids, because Iceland is very it goes to extremes. The government, so to speak, is very much has its fingers in your kids and in your own personal opinions in a way that's
kind of like a mommy.
Very drastic and very dangerous.
You cannot have a wrong opinions of things, and you could.
What do women want? They like agreement and consensus. Wasn't that one of the first things that she listed?
Publicly executed. You cannot go against anything except unless you're able to lose everything you have.
That sounds pretty feminine energy, right? Now, it gets even crazier. So here is a Washington state representative, Sean Scott, and he sat down with Brandy Cruz to have a little discussion. And she asked him a really great question about socialism, which is the political flavor of feminism. Absolutely, right? It aligns perfectly with the nurturing needs. They try to take care of everybody's needs according to
everybody.
Your needs, or according to your wants, according to your needs. I can't even remember the socialist creed, right? Because it makes no sense to me. But she asked him, is there a place where socialism has worked out?
I want you to give me one example of socialism you think working well somewhere.
A good example of socialism working well somewhere. This is a really, really cool question. I think of Cuba in particular. Very, very high literacy rate, number one. Number two, extremely strong commitment to public health. So that's one example that I can think of that would resonate with pretty much anybody in our state who cares about education or healthcare. Would you disagree with that?
People flee on makeshift rafts and die in the ocean to flee Cuba for the United States.
Yeah, and I think that is something that absolutely we have to be sensitive to. But you asked me about institutions that are working really, really well.
I asked you about places socialism is working, and you chose a country that people will risk their lives to flee from to this country. There's a reason for that, Sean.
There was a revolution in Cuba. That is correct.
They still do it to this day.
Right.
They show up on the beaches of Miami.
Right.
Because they would rather be here and would risk their lives in shark-infested water to flee the country that you just gave me an example of.
And if the situation were reversed, the injuries and the ailments that they sustain as a result of migrating to a place where they believe that they're going to be better off, I believe that they could be treated in a much better way than American healthcare facilities are currently able to treat people. So that's one example that I can think of socialism working very well in public health and in education.
All right.
That guy's insane.
Is there anywhere where socialism would work? Well, Cuba's healthcare system is pretty good. Everything else, people shark-infested waters. But if the migration pattern was reversed, Cuba could care for those immigrants better health-wise.
What?
Tell me that that's not feminine energy, right? And look at how the left does things. Men look at things as a whole. What are the facts? What are the rules?
I forgot we were talking about feminine energy. I just thought it was the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Hold on.
Okay.
Right? What are the rules? What is just and right? And men are going to look at things and they're going to see cost trade-offs, right? Like, yeah, free healthcare would be great, but if now I'm a slave to pay my taxes so that my unworking neighbor can have healthcare, that the payoff's not there. The rules are being broken of society. Women look at it and they just like all caring. Just throw money at it. Just make the healthcare good. Yeah, but not at the cost of, doesn't matter the cost. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just so socialism works in Cuba, Ron. It works. And it's a great example because their healthcare is great. Is it? Right? Like,
well, I mean, you should take the chance. I mean, because even if you get hurt on the way there, they got the best healthcare to patch you up.
Oh yeah, that's the whole thing.
You should chance it.
Now, even Donald Trump on his Truth Social feed posted this. Say it with me, liberal women. Oh, great! Now no truths to show. It was saying. Well, Trump posted a video saying the same thing. Truth. What's going on? This website.
The back yet? Pow.
It's not working. Who cares? Anyways, Trump posted a video on there. Harmeet Dillon was being asked about the American way, and she talks about how America has a certain personality, and when immigrants come here, they should assimilate to that. This is, again, Harmeet Dillon, who has a lot of masculine energy here.
My opinion as a woman who loves this country, the best country on earth, and I've traveled to dozens of countries around the world, and I'm an immigrant, is that you must subscribe to and share the fundamental American values that bind us all. And if you don't, there are plenty of other countries. You can go live in Europe. You can go live under the thumb of the, jackbooted police who arrest people for tweets, or you can live somewhere else where you think it's utopian, or New Zealand, which has got beautiful views and kind of crazy laws when it comes to some of these liberty issues. So that's my view. To be an American truly, you must embrace all of our American laws and our values, our concept of Thanksgiving, our concept of shared social principles of mutual respect and free speech and equal protection, and not judging people according to how they were born or what color they were born, but what their potential is and their ability is. And I think that these are some of the things that I think are really critical. If we don't enforce those laws and those concepts socially and legally, we are doomed as a country.
Right. That's very well said. And there is an American culture. This is what's interesting, is somehow we're viewed as this multicultural place with immigrants from everywhere. But the reality is there is a very distinct American culture. And in my view, that's why people want to come here. And so to pretend like somehow you should be welcoming everybody, even if they despise the country or resent the country, it's just a huge misunderstanding of what it is to be an American.
The truth of the matter is, America is the one place on earth where the consensus is we can agree to disagree. And we can walk our own ways. You stay on your side of the fence, I'll stay on my side of the fence. That is the American way at its core. It's don't tread on me. That is a very masculine thing. What are the rules? You can say whatever you want to say, and I can walk away. Okay?
Just leave me alone.
That is the American way. Now, can that be weaponized? Absolutely, you can weaponize it against us, right? And can people who should otherwise have different values get sucked in? I'll never forget Ashley Babbitt's mother, who met with Mike Johnson. And I said, well, what's he like? And she goes, he's a little, she pinched her cheeks, like that. He's a little like child. He's just a little, like he's got little rosy cheeks, he's like a little kid. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Mike Johnson has the speaker's gavel, and he could pass an incredible agenda, and he could fix a ton of the fraud that we have systemically, right? Like make it very difficult to commit a lot of fraud. Mike Johnson could do a lot of things as Speaker of the House. Now, he's got a small majority. I understand he's got to play politics a little bit, but there's some big questions that are like 80% issues. Like, you're not going to survey Americans and be like, should we just give free money to Somali immigrants? The answer is going to be no. They're going to have to do something for it, right? So why is it that our current legislature, which we have majorities as Republicans in the House and Senate, why can't we get anything done? Well, General Flynn did a little bit of digging on our Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Just so people know, and I'm very transparent about what I'm doing out there for the most part. I am in the process because I want Speaker Johnson to do more. And so we started looking at Speaker Johnson's PACs and how many of his PACs turn money back around to daycare and healthcare clinics and that kind of stuff. It's incredible the amounts of money. And that's one person, but he happens to be the Speaker of the House. So this is not a partisan thing for me. Just so people know, and I'm very transparent about what I'm doing.
So Mike Johnson's in on this health and human services fraud broadly, right?
Not shocking me.
Not shocking. I know, not shocking. Where are the 40,000 hours of J6 footage? Where are the different legislation acts? Where's the single issue votes? None of it. None of it, right? But yet, there you go. Why are we not getting anything? Well, there you go. Is there a better person? I don't know. Marjorie Taylor Greene's leaving. Matt Gaetz already got run out of the House. I don't know who to send in there. So just rosy cheek Mike Johnson, I guess. Okay, on to Greenland. Greenland. Look at this map. This is probably the best little map that explains why Greenland is so important to us. So here's Canada down here, United States over here. Here's over here. Here's Russia, right? Isn't that amazing? Like, to look at a map this way, look how Sweden is orientated. Like, Sweden is north of like direct line from Nova Scotia. I always think of it being, anyways.
So across the pole. It's across the pole from.
Yep. So sitting from Moscow here, in order for Moscow to hit us with pretty much any missiles, they got to go over Greenland, right? Because of so Greenland strategically,
the buffer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag. Greenland is going to be a United States state, almost no doubt about it here. Here is Stephen Miller talking with Jake Tapper about Greenland and being pressed because Donald Trump tweeted out this picture right here. This is Greenland with the American flag. As soon as he got done with Venezuela in the press conference, and we're going to Greenland. We're taking Greenland. We have to have it for national security.
You know those maps that we used to look at in social studies class that show how our territory expanded? It feels like we're going to get another map.
It feels like we're on some like northern expansion route, right? There was a speech that Putin gave where he was, some pomp and circumstance thing he had going on over there in Russia. And he had a kid on the stage with him, and he asked the kid, where do Russia's borders end? And the kid goes, they go all the way to Alaska. And then Putin whispers, but the mic can hear it. He goes, the Russian borders never. That was like, that's pretty interesting.
Well, and also it's fitting that we have the Gulf of America, so it's all going to work out really well.
All right, here's Stephen Miller defending not only being in charge of Venezuela, but hey, we're taking Greenland too.
Important topic. The premier of Greenland and the premier of Denmark and other Danish officials are responding to a Twitter post from your wife, Katie Miller, herself a former Trump White House official, showing Greenland covered with an American flag, saying soon. After that was posted, President Trump repeated the claim that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security reasons. The Danish prime minister responded to this in an interview earlier today, as reported by Bloomberg, quote, I believe one should take the American president seriously when he says it wants Greenland, but I will also make it clear that if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security that has been established since the end of the Second World War. Can you rule out that the U.S. is ever going to try to take Greenland by force?
Well, let me go back a step. The president has been clear for months now. So I know you're treating this as breaking news. The president has been clear for months now that the United States should be the nation that
Birkenbein, the whispered comment from Putin was the Russian borders never end.
Has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus.
Right, but your wife posted that like hours after the Venezuela operation. That's why it's newly relevant.
No, I'm not, and I'll talk with you about it for an hour. I think it's a really important conversation. I just wanted to reset, Jake, by making clear that it has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, By what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You
I understand, Jake. I understand you're trying very hard to, which again is your job.
You got a country with 20 million people in Latin America. You just flew in helicopters and took their president right out of his bed. And you're over here, but you won't use military for Greenland? We don't need to. We don't need to. Who's going to stand up? If we just put out a memo saying we're coming to Greenland tomorrow, I promise you, whoever's in charge of Greenland will just bring out the key to the city. I'd like to stay living here and not go to prison, thank you. Like, there's no military intervention.
I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer.
That says Miller refuses to rule out the United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. There's no need to even think or talk about this in the context that you're asking of a military operation. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland.
One last question, Stephen.
Make any sense.
I love the way they're framing it. But here's the thing: serious people are taking this framing seriously. So this is Committee Chairman Fehlinger from NATO. Okay, so he's from Austria, and he's very concerned about the United States taking Greenland. And here's what he says will happen if the United States goes forward with it.
If you take it, we take every single base of the Americans from Aviano to Ramstein, from Romania to all the other military bases will be confiscated, and you will lose it. And the whole position of American power since World War II, if you take Greenland, you have to leave. It's very simple, Mrs. Miller. This is the leverage we have. You need the spaces for global power projection. You won't have it. And we can defend ourselves very well. And we will do that without the US nuclear shield, without the US troops in Europe, without the American bases. We will simply run these bases ourselves, and we run your boys home into Chicago and Ohio. And goodbye. If you go extreme, we go extreme. It's a issue.
Well, that doesn't scare us. Okay? Like, if you're saying, hey, we might have to pull out of Germany and Austria and Romania. Okay, that's great. You got a nuclear shield. Good luck over there. We're already strategically planning for you guys being a non-factor in 20 years. You know, I mean, it will be the Islamic Republic of France here probably before the end of my life. Okay? So, if you take Greenland, we'll take all of the bases.
We're counting on you like we're counting on Social Security.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're really holding our breath here. What makes no sense to me is these guys are like, what? Denmark's got Greenland as a colony, so it runs against their entire self-governance proposition. It runs against the fact that why would you not? I mean, I understand Greenland's protected, but as the Arctic becomes more and more of a busy place, why don't you want more expansion there? Why don't you want some defenses there? It makes you kind of go, do we have a Mike Johnson thing where these guys have stock in, you know, Moscow-based ice-breaking companies? Or are they investing in, you know, Moscow long-range missiles? Like, what is going on? Are there childcare centers up in Greenland that are being paid for through Denmark? Like, what is the deal? This is Trump's ambassador to Greenland was being asked about these same topics.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast events have developed since President Trump came into office less than a year ago, from saying we need to own Greenland right out of the box to beginning to discuss it over and over. And then his actions in Venezuela, his warning to Iran, and then saying this, but especially his deep desire to make sure that the Western Hemisphere is secure is a very exciting thing. It's exciting to watch because things happen when President Trump moves his team and intends to make changes.
So when he says he wants to acquire Greenland, what's your understanding of that?
Well, I'm not sure what he means by that. I saw the word buy, purchase. So I'm not sure what he means by that, because a COFA, free association with Greenland, wouldn't cost the United States any money up front. I'm sure the Greenlanders would prefer to continue the kind of economic welfare that they receive from Denmark every year, which is around $600 million a year. But there are benefits to having that relationship. I'm sure Denmark benefits economically far more than $600 million a year with the resources that are pulled out of the water and the ground in Greenland. So there's a close relationship with Greenland and Denmark, but Denmark can't afford to develop Greenland, and it also will never be able to defend it.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be interesting if we did have like 57, 58 states, Alberta, Greenland, throw Venezuela in there. Let's throw Panama in for good measure. Heck, we'll throw Puerto Rico a bone.
And like we have the Gulf of America, I was thinking maybe the Arctic could be the first, like it could be the first ocean that's named America.
The American Ocean?
Yeah. Let's get right up on the
I
shores.
think the Russians might have a little something to do with that. They'd be like, let's call it the Slav. See, they would want to call it the Anglo-Slav Ocean or Slav Anglophile.
We'll have to think about it.
Yeah, they might have a little something to say about that.
Put your suggestions
wouldn't it
in
be
the...
hilarious if Russia beat Trump to it?
Go ahead and put your suggestions in the chat.
Wouldn't it be great if Trump beat him to it and did it, you know, the ocean of Russia or something like that, the Russian ocean? Oh my goodness. Well, India gets an ocean. Why can't we have one?
Yeah.
We have more boundary touching that ocean than any other.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Now, Trump going down and taking the oil in Venezuela. So Trump put out a message yesterday that said that the new interim government in Venezuela, that's what he's calling them now, the interim government, has agreed to turn over $30 to $50 million of already sanctioned oil to the United States.
Whoa.
So that's just for the math at $70 a barrel. That ends up being like, or $60 a barrel ends up being like $547 million that Trump says he can then redirect down to Venezuela. Well, this is a huge move geopolitically. Big deal. Venezuela hasn't been putting a lot of oil out into the market, obviously, because they've been sanctioned everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely going to dry up Iran, Cuba, and North Korea, who buy dirty Russian or Venezuelan oil, heavy crude. But now that the United States is in the market and taking delivery, this affects the other major heavy crude producer in the world, which is, guess who? Canada.
He was saying that America needed Greenland. Greenland rejected Trump's comments once again over the weekend. So where does it stop? There are now global concerns about Trump's ambitions.
Look, Venezuela was the blueprint. The president actually went in, kidnapped a sovereign leader, and did it with very little outcry from the international community. We already know that the Pentagon has been drawing up plans for a military takeover of Greenland. The president, in addition, has said he would take Canada by economic force. Given the fact that he now has his hands on the largest oil reserves in the world, and we know that Canada refines oil very similar to Venezuela, I think that does now take a lot of leverage away from Canada, which means I think Donald Trump his plan for economic takeover of Canada is coming into clearer picture. As we look at Greenland, however, I think given what we saw play out in Venezuela, the president is now more emboldened, not less, to actually follow through with a military takeover, because we haven't heard much from the international community. And I doubt even NATO allies would actually push back if, in fact, that's what the Trump administration decided to do.
Well, not that one Austrian. He'll take all your bases. He'll take all of your bases. Okay. You need to understand how important this is. Okay. Donald Trump has, I don't want to use the word checkmate, but he's put him in check. I don't know if it's checkmate yet, but he's put him in check. Canada has become a beneficiary of the United States. South America, most of those countries have become a beneficiary. Somalia, beneficiary. All these African countries, beneficiaries. Somalian daycares, beneficiary. They have all become dependent on the mother's milk. Justin Trudeau told Donald Trump that that Canada, to the tune of $200 billion a year, could not survive without American subsidies and trade imbalances, which is what prompted Trump to be like, then you should be a governor then. Right? You shouldn't be a president or a prime minister of a nation, because you're not a nation. If you can't even self-sustain, you're just a little brother.
Right.
Right. So, but all of these, this is a lesson to people who get government benefit and welfare and government paychecks. when the government pays you, they own you. If the government pays Canada, they own Canada, because by withholding those funds, what do? They can change the way Canada behaves because they're dependent on that money. Well, oil was the one piece of leverage they had left, because Trump's energy dominance includes oil coming from Canada and the current amounts and probably more. And all of a sudden, you just opened up a whole new pipeline of oil coming from Venezuela.
Don't need them anymore.
We very well might see Canada become a couple states because they can't survive otherwise. How many other nations out there can't survive otherwise? We know NATO can't survive without the US. We know most of Europe can't survive. Britain just had a big thing because they're talking about deploying to Ukraine now, to go defend Ukraine. All of Europe can muster together somewhere around 20,000 troops.
20,000?
Which is, by the way, about the population of our base in Germany. In fact, let's just look at that up.
Jeez. Oh my gosh. They are broken.
So I'm looking up, what is the soldier population of the U.S. base in Germany? The U.S. military presence in Germany includes 35,000 soldiers and soldiers and civilians. So 35,000 people we have stationed in just Germany and their families, and all of Europe can come up with maybe 20,000 soldiers. And then and that's based on the equipment. So they can only equip 20,000 soldiers. And then they went on to say that equipment is too old.
Oh, jeez.
Procurement, Halliburton's going to be running the presses. Okay. Secretary Burgum talks about this oil now that we have the Venezuelan oil. How's this going to play out for us?
Well, at the top level, of course, none of this is possible without Commander-in-Chief President Trump. Strategically brilliant, and then of course the breathtakingly excellent execution. Not only of something like when we were bombing Iran earlier and taking out their nuclear program, or here, removing a head of a criminal organization, Maduro, who also posing as a president, doing that with flawless execution. All of that's only possible because President Trump had the foundation of having a policy of energy dominance, and the fact that America can take these actions against countries that have these large reserves, and we see virtually no change at the price of the pump here in America, reflects the great strategy and the great execution of the American oil and gas industry, American energy industry, and President Trump. But in case of the synergy between Venezuela, heavy crude, the refineries that we have on the South Coast in the Gulf of America, which were built to handle that, and then you need to dilute that heavy crude with a lighter product. And of course, we have an excess of that lighter product here because the shale oils that come out of the shale revolution in America are perfect for blending to achieve this. So if you're in the refining sector, this is great news. It's great news for jobs. It's great news for gas prices going forward. It's great news for America, and it's great news for Venezuela, because Venezuela has an opportunity now to actually have capital come in and rebuild their economy and take advantage of the fact that they've got they have larger oil reserves than Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, one of the richest countries in the world. Venezuela, one of the poorest countries in the world. It doesn't have to be that way. With American technology, American partnership, this Venezuela can be transformed, and that's a win for this hemisphere. It's a win for the people of Venezuela.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow, look at that map. Do you see that? Look at the reserves in Venezuela. 303 billion.
It's right there too, just a hop, skip, and a jump to Florida.
It's got more than the Middle East. Wow.
Yeah. I'm thinking Alberta 51, Venezuela 52, Greenland and Puerto Rico, they get island status and they get 53 collectively. I don't know how that'll work out, but it'll be like North Michigan, the North Peninsula of Michigan and Maine Peninsula, like two separate places. Okay. So let's move on now. Let's talk about Senator Mark Kelly, who has been in the hot seat. So Pete Hegseth put out a statement saying that Mark Kelly is going to be recalled to a review board of some sort, and that they're going to take action, including reducing his rank. Okay. So it doesn't look like they're going to fire him or call him to active duty and make him not be a senator.
So it's just going to affect his retirement.
It's going to affect his retirement, and it's a pretty big slap in the face for people. Like, this is a big deal.
That too.
To get knocked down a rank, like, it's a big deal. It would be easier for them just to ignore this, but it can't really be ignored. Well, Mark Kelly responded yesterday.
Let me make it perfectly clear. This letter, or anything that Pete Hegseth says or does to me, is in no way going to affect the way I do my job and represent my constituents in the United States Senate. Ain't happening. So, his option, right now is he can continue with this kind of bull, or he can go take a hike. That's his options. And if I have an opportunity to, tell him that tomorrow, maybe I will.
Maybe you will. Except Pete Hegseth has all the keys here. The military doesn't have to play politics. Jake Tapper asked him about this. Was invading Venezuela the unlawful order you were referring to?
We've heard Democrats say that the operation in Venezuela was illegal. Do you think it was illegal? And if so, should the service members who were part of that have refused to obey those orders?
So what we were talking about in the video is about a service member being given a specific order and having to make a decision about whether this is lawful or not. And this is like the reasonable person theory. What you're getting at is constitutional questions. Can a president try to do a law enforcement action on a head of state, but use 150 airplanes and the full force of the U.S. military to do that? So these are two different things. Now, Maduro is a bad guy, and it's good that he's gone. It seems like this president, because he had no plan beyond removing Maduro, has now installed Maduro's number 2 person in Delcy Rodriguez. That's what we call in the Navy fleeting up, when the executive officer becomes the commanding officer. That's the situation we have in Venezuela right now. And it's because I don't think they had a plan of what was going to come next.
You want a master class on deflection? I don't think they had a plan. I think they have a plan. I think they do.
Kind of seems like they do.
In fact, I think it's a very masculine plan. What are the facts? Right? What are the rules? Okay, so the rules are that when it comes to loyalty to your boss, there should be a chain of command that there's respect. Hence why we can't put the Nobel Prize winner and just plop her in and be like, good luck. Right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you again about the money that Trump is, that the American people are getting from this oil sale, or from the. Can you explain that again? There's some back oil that they're giving us.
So they've got these tankers that they've confiscated already, right?
Right.
And so there's a long, drawn out legal process to take that oil and put it to market and do.
Oh, so they're just bypassing that process.
So basically, by just signing it over, it's like, okay, go ahead and do the thing with the oil and then bring the money back. Okay,
so that money that comes back, that's coming back to Venezuela?
Yes. So,
okay, so that's what I wanted to know. So that bit of information is telling me that these people are brilliant.
Yes.
So you have this big infusion of cash back into the country to now prop up the government chains of command that
and
you
it's
need
the
to
petrodollar.
operate. Yes.
And it's the petrodollar.
So it's valuable.
Yes. And so what's happening here is they used to go offload it in Cuba or Iran, and then whatever portion of the proceeds would come back to the regime. Well, now Donald Trump's going to hold the checkbook himself, and he's going to go, okay, Ms. Rodriguez, how much did you want for education?
Right.
Oh,
this is instant loyalty
to invest in the education.
This is instant loyalty.
Instant, because you're signing the paycheck.
Yes. So this sounds like there was a plan.
Now, this is different than what they did in Iraq. When they toppled Iraq, one of the first things they did is they put out the message, all Ba'athist party members leave your jobs, right? So your local DMV guy who's a Ba'athist party member, just because, before he was some other party member, it's like you just have to be a part of one of these political parties to have a government job, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden he's fired. So this is what caused the power vacuum that led to the Iraqi civil war, that led to the rise of ISIS, was literally, who's the principal at your local school now? Because he just got summarily fired because he was a Ba'athist party member. But he was a pretty good principal. The guy who was running the local town water system, fired. So who's running the water system? Guy walked away with his keys because he was pissed. You see what I'm saying? And that's what caused a breakdown of all their social services. So sure, we roll into Baghdad, take over the palace, and we've got their parliament, we've controlled the high level government, but high level don't do nothing. It's the low level guys that are actually your functionaries, your apparatchiks that need to process your application for, like I said a million times, a driver's license or a building permit.
Right. The guys at the top are just admin.
Yeah. Or all of a sudden the entire town gets diarrhea. Why? Because nobody's been filling the chlorine tablets in the water filter system. You know what I mean? So it does become a big deal. Donald Trump can control the redevelopment of Venezuela by controlling the money. It does seem like it's a different plan than we've seen since Korea, and it probably has a chance of surviving because in the end, it's going to look like the Venezuelans fix themselves. You know, they'll have some snap election and half of the people will get replaced and half the people will get a vote of confidence. Like, yeah, that guy's a Maduro regime guy, but he never beat anybody, arrested anybody, snitched on anybody, and he runs that water system pretty good. Let's keep him there. Do you see what I'm saying? Give those guys a chance to change their loyalties because really their loyalty was just tied to a paycheck. So it'll be really interesting. Same thing's happening in Syria, right? Former Al-Qaeda member, former designated terrorist on all the sanction lists is now the president of Syria and is coming and visiting Trump in the White House. Why? Because he has the capacity to actually run that place. He has the respect of the other men that he needs to have the respect of. Why? Because they've probably seen him chop off a head or two. And it's just like Trump is earning the respect of leaders around the world by going in and arresting Nicolas Maduro and killing Soleimani and doing what he says he will do. Right now, domestically, I know that a lot of governors who understand realpolitik, they understand where real power comes from. This is what gives governors like Polis in Colorado the ability to stand up to Trump, or Waltz in his weak attempt to stand up to Trump, or Gavin Newsom, who's constantly trying to stand up to Trump, right? It's like they have to play this balance. How much can I stand up and keep my political capital, if not gain political capital, without becoming so offensive that he comes in with the hammer and actually does something to me? Because Trump is also checked in that he can't just go arrest the governor of Minnesota or governor of California unless they shoot someone in broad daylight, right? Because then it will look like he is just, you know,
over the top authoritarian. So the way he's going about doing it is the same way with Venezuela. How do you control these people? You control the money, because they've become dependent on the mother's milk. They've become dependent on the money. The very thing that screwed them over or screwed us over is now going to screw them over because they cannot survive as states, or like we mentioned, other countries can't survive without the constant cash infusions. Well, HHS is starting to get to the bottom of all this domestic fraud, and they are cutting off funds everywhere.
Hello, I'm HHS Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill.
I'm Alex Adams, HHS Assistant Secretary for the Administration for Children and Families.
For the past 2 weeks, everyone's been asking questions about the political patronage system in Minnesota. Incompetent state officials, through negligence or by design, for years have stood by as taxpayer money was diverted into the pockets of politically connected cronies.
By the way, this guy to me looks like a forensic accountant assassin. Okay? Like, this is not the guy you want to have going over your business books and records. You know what I mean?
Yes.
This guy just...
I was trying to figure out what to say about him. But
this guy looks like an absolute accounting assassin. Okay?
That's a pretty good assessment.
Not someone you're going to send with an M16 to the front line, but definitely someone you're going to have rifling through the general's desk drawers. You know what I mean?
Have been unwilling to provide definitive confirmation about the size and scope of fraud. This much is clear. Governor Walz's administration is taking away money from working families and giving it to fake daycare scams. Raising a young family is a blessing, and it's okay to need help. Many families struggle to find affordable childcare and rely upon state and federal assistance. Unfortunately, Governor Walz has allowed resources to be wasted on wide-scale fraud, diverting those resources away from the families who rely upon them to make ends meet.
These are not victimless crimes. Every dollar stolen is a dollar stolen from children and families who need those services the most. But fraud does not happen in a vacuum. The policies set in Washington influence how states administer these programs, and those policies can either prevent fraud or invite it.
So we should let Mike Johnson know.
Unfortunately, the Biden-Harris administration adopted rules for the Child Care and Development Fund that created serious vulnerabilities. Those policies weakened accountability and made fraud easier, not harder. That's why today we released a proposed rule to repeal those Biden-era mandates.
The proposed rule does three important things.
So these proposed rules are not just for Minnesota now, they're nationwide. So pay attention to these. This could be, there are certain things when we look at the scale of this fraud, this could withhold potentially billions of dollars from going into circulation into the market. So this could have a real world street impact on the value of the dollar and the cost of goods. And, you know, some of these communities here, like in Little Somalia up in Minnesota, the density of these childcare centers, or like in Boston, this could be a significant percentage of their GDP. right?
First, it ends the requirement that taxpayer dollars must pay for childcare before services are provided. States will no longer be forced to send payments to providers upfront. Second, it ends the mandate for enrollment-based billing. Payments can once again be based on verified attendance, not just enrollment, so that providers can't bill for children who never show up. And third, it ends the mandate to pre-fund guaranteed seats at childcare centers without competition. This restores parental choice and brings back market incentives that reward legitimate, high-quality providers.
Taken together, these changes ensure that payments reflect real services and real attendance, making it far harder for fraudulent or non-operational centers to game the system. Across welfare programs, Biden administration policies effectively backed up a Brinks truck and sent the security home. In childcare, that ends today.
So that's pretty exciting. Again, the ripple impact of this is ultimately long-term going to be excellent. Don't spend money on things that don't make you money. It's like, business 101. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not against it.
Yeah, not against it. But we can't fool ourselves and think that this won't have an impact. I mean, this type of activity at the scale they're talking about could send California into a recession. It probably is going to send Minnesota into a recession, right? I mean, the scale of this could be pretty freaking significant.
Wow.
There's a lot of people that have had no problem buying new cars and gas and rent and blah, blah. All of a sudden, the money's going to dry up. So you mean I only get paid for the 2 kids I have in my childcare instead of the 19 I have on the books? Well, at $25 to $33 an hour, having your wage go from a couple $100 an hour down to 60, which still sounds like a lot.
Well, yeah, and they had those lunch services or meal services that are preparing preparing 90,000 meals a day or something.
4,000 meals a day.
Right.
You don't even have parking for that.
Right.
It's
McDonald's can't even do that.
The insanity of it. Now, Kristi Noem was on with Jesse Waters, and ISIS descended on Minneapolis. They are going door to door to these daycare centers, okay? But they're also heading into California and other hotspots. And Kristi Noem basically put Gavin Newsom on notice.
The governor of California says, bring it on.
Oh, we'll be there. We think that this is just the tip of the iceberg. So Minnesota is unbelievable what we've seen, but it is leading us to networks all over the country and overseas, and we're going to follow every single one of them. Homeland Security Investigations is an incredible team of individuals who go after human traffickers, sex traffickers, but the fraud that we have in our public programs that are tied to California, absolutely. We're going to come to you, Governor Newsom, and we're going to arrest every single individual that has ties to this kind of stealing of taxpayer dollars, and we will hold them accountable.
If you go after the end users of the fraud, all the daycare center workers, we don't have enough prison space for them. We don't. You don't have enough space. At the scale they're talking about, you don't have enough space. You do have enough space for all the politicians and bureaucrats who enabled it or grifted off of it. So if you're someone who's taken money from one of these fraud schemes, you're probably going to get caught, right? You're going to end up on a list at least because AI is going to find you. It's just a matter of if they have the resources to prosecute you.
And don't flee to Canada because that's just going to be America in a few days.
Yeah, there's no running. Greenland, Canada, they're all coming in, man. Yeah. I last night, just before scriptures and prayers, I saw something, one of these Greenland clips I watched, and I was kind of jacked for a minute. Right when Donald Trump got elected, and then immediately started talking about Greenland. My wife and I would talk over the prison phones about, we should move to Greenland, And so last night I said, kids, we're moving to Greenland. And my youngest son, who's 7, started crying. I don't want to move to Greenland.
Thought Dad was serious.
I was like, we'll be okay. So Tim Walz gets asked about, dropping out of the 2026 race. And he has a little bit of an interesting answer, and he brings it back around to J6.
What opinion did you end your campaign by yourself, or did you receive pressure from Democrats?
Before we get there, Carlite says that gnome looks like an actor. That's not her. It is her, sans all the colored makeup. I actually saw that too, and I had the double take. Is that Kristi Noem? And I went back and looked at it. It's definitely Kristi Noem. She said, obviously some Botox and things like that. But it's just her without the colored, all the shadow makeup and stuff like that. No, that is her, Carlitos. Okay, it must have been like well, it was late night. It was like it's like an early morning interview. She hadn't put her face on yet. The most hilarious thing with Kristi Noem is the South Park episode where they make fun of all of her makeup and her face like falling off. It's pretty funny.
I don't watch that.
Tim Waltz.
What decision to end your campaign by yourself, or did you receive pressure from Democratic out?
This is a decision that I make and make with my family. And certainly, I think, as I said, it's the right decision. I'll note, I think it's appropriate we're here today. The war that's being waged against Minnesota, you're seeing it. We have a ridiculous surge of apparently 2,000 people not coordinating with us that are for a show of the cameras.
That's ICE and DHS, by the way, going door to door to these facilities. 2,000 people they sent.
I'm going to note to all of you, today is January 6th. There's no debate what happened. The President of the United States led an insurrection against a fair election to try and overturn that and, report both sides of this. Well, he said he really didn't, and courts convicted 400 of them, and he pardoned them. No, he did that. He did that, and that's today. And it's clear that we also saw today he implemented 5 states are being punished with a freezing of federal funds illegally that were appropriated by Congress, our tax dollars.
But not for fraud. Now, he didn't have it. This press conference had nothing to do with January 6th. Okay. But because it was January 6th, he brought it up. But if you notice, if you don't think things are scripted sometimes, look at right here what C-SPAN is advertising. Live now, Dems meeting on January 6th attack. And then Tim Waltz just brings it up kind of out of nowhere. Did the Democrats encourage you to retire? No, I made that decision on my own. But it's interesting you're asking this on this day, right? Right as the advertisement on C-SPAN is showing a January 6th promo. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. Scott Adams had this to say about January 6th. You remember the time when the Democrats got us all in on a huge hoax?
Well, let's start out by saying happy fake insurrection day, January 6th. Do you remember when you thought it was ridiculous to imagine that Democrats would be playing complicated hoaxes on the public? It didn't seem like anything that could actually happen, right? And then you found out about the Russia collusion hoax. Oops. It turns out they can run a major hoax against the country. Then you found out about the fine people hoax. And you said to yourself, how is it even possible that the mainstream media went along with that hoax? How is that even possible? And then again, you said to yourself, wow, I didn't even think that could happen. But there's 2 examples where it happened. And then the one that is the biggest FU in the world is that the January 6th insurrection hoax. Now, if you're new to this, and maybe the first time you've heard me talk about it, here's how you know that the January insurrection hoax was a hoax. Now, what I'm talking about is the hoax that Trump knew that he lost the election, and the people he sent to the Capitol to protest also knew that the election was clean, but they were trying to overthrow the country. Now, that entire hoax depended on nobody in the mainstream media, nobody, asking the people who attended the protests why they were there. And they would have found out that not a single person believed that it was a clean election and they were hoping to overthrow the government. It was the biggest assumption that drove the entire hoax, and not one legitimate, not one mainstream media ever took a protester and said, did you really believe that the election was clean? Because none of those existed. Every person who was there, I'll betcha, plus Trump himself, I'll betcha, believed that they were seeing an obviously rigged election, and they wanted to slow things down until they could be sure it had not been rigged. Now, that narrative got reversed by the hoaxers. The hoaxers knowing, this is actually good technique by the hoaxers, the hoaxers knew that if they could get there first with their narrative and say that, no, he knew it was a good election, he was just trying to overthrow the country. if they could do that, and they could ram it down our throats every day, especially with the help of Hollywood theatrical people, and then they would put on this whole January 6th publicized, Hollywood produced thing, so that every single day you would see their narrative. And Trump was now out of office, so he couldn't really push his narrative as much as normally he could. So I call today Happy Fake Insurrection Hoax Day, and I hope we never see anything like that again. But the ability of the Democrats to sustain a gigantic, multi-year hoax with lots of moving parts, they can absolutely do that. And we've seen it now multiple times.
It's that feminine energy, right? Where it's about feelings and emotions. It's not about facts. Because when facts get involved, it kind of breaks the narrative. This was the moment on MSNBC, October 2022. They did a live audience panel, and they asked about J6. I remember when Scott Adams, I knew that as a country, I would be okay, right? As a human being living in this country, like I wouldn't die being called a traitor. I probably will get called a traitor on my deathbed because, why wouldn't they call me that at this point? I literally get called a traitor almost every day online. But I knew that as a country would be okay because Scott Adams said, look, I'll just admit it. I don't want to live in a country where January 6th doesn't happen. And I was like, that's what most people feel like. Like something had to happen. I don't know what. You probably shouldn't have punched a cop, which I didn't. But there needed to be the protest. This is what MSNBC found out when they did this panel, because while they might have had the narrative and they might have had the talking points, they didn't have the facts. And that was enough to keep their narrative from really sticking.
Doug Mastriano was at the insurrection and he was photographed breaching one of the restricted areas. Is that okay?
Which area? Because I saw a video where Capitol officers were taking away barriers and unlocking
Opening
doors. For people. So, I mean,
they opened the gates.
So it shouldn't be disqualifying for an elected official if they participated in January 6th?
He didn't strike anybody. He didn't hurt anybody.
And the only one that died was a protester there, not a Capitol police.
Unarmed female veteran.
That's the only one that died.
That's the only one who died.
A police officer did die.
No, it was a stroke.
That's not
on site.
Caused by that. That's because he shouldn't have been a police officer. It was one woman.
So what do you make, though, overall of January 6th? I mean, it was watching that footage. It was pretty disturbing. I mean, there were people throwing excrement at the walls, and it was it's the Capitol.
It looked a lot like Antifa's action to me.
Except on a much smaller scale, it looked the same as the Black Lives Matter riots.
That's what I saw the similarities to be.
Minneapolis burns, Kenosha.
But so it's okay just because one side that you disagree with.
I'm saying Antifa infiltrated.
It's good for one, it's good for the other.
Anybody who harmed anybody who caused property destruction, that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah,
but if you're there making your voice heard at the people's house, no less, that's again, it's a fundamental constitutional right of an American citizen.
And he's gay, by the way.
People should not be being held political prisoner because of it.
For misdemeanors. That's East Germany.
That's East Germany.
Tactics.
Yeah, that's what's scary.
It was an actual fiery but mostly peaceful protest. And the other ones that were the opposite.
Was the protest legitimate in your eyes?
Administration, I feel like, is using it as their Reichstag fire.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're using it as.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you think that
totally
President Trump could have quelled the violence that day?
Not him personally.
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so.
It started while he was still speaking. I was actually there. I was there to see what I thought was going to be the last time I ever saw Trump in Little Island.
So did he tell everybody to go and start rioting?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, and actually, I stayed for the whole speech. Like, a ton of people did.
Mm-hmm.
And then we all headed to the Capitol because he said, let's go to the Capitol and peacefully let our voices be heard. And we get to the Capitol, we're like, what the hell's going on? Because it had already happened.
I'm pretty sure I saw Democratic operatives instigating people to cross barriers.
This was the moment that their narrative kind of fell apart. They thought they were rock solid until that panel, and they're, oh my gosh. You know, I mean, there's a lot of indecisiveness about January 6th. All right, it's time for us to jump over to private, and we are going to be diving into one specific case that Rand Paul released yesterday. This is Christine Crowder. So she was wrongfully accused of being at the Capitol on J6, got ultimately charged, and she didn't go in the Capitol at all. And all the pictures they had were not her. They put her on the no-fly list, kind of screwed her life up. Wasn't even her. So we're going to hear a little bit about those East Germany tactics here in the private side. And then we're going to hear the basically the last words of Ashley Babbitt. In fact, maybe we'll head out with the last words of Ashley Babbitt. And then right after this, Ron, we'll go ahead and jump over into private. So this is Ashley Babbitt, just like me that day, walking to the Capitol. I shot a video very similar to this. Since the day I found out about Ashley Babbitt, I've many, many times thought it could have been me.
Over 3 million people here today. So despite what the media tells you, boots on ground definitely say something different. There is a sea of nothing but red, white, and blue, patriots and Trump. And it was amazing. We could see the president talk. We are now walking down the inaugural path to the Capitol building. 3 million plus people. God bless America, patriots.
Bless Ashley Babbitt, her family, who all dearly miss her. All right, guys, we're going to jump over to private and look at this timeline for Christine Crowder and hear from her. So we'll talk to you guys.